and you want to know about something that's warm, go out to that 23rd and Lincoln and find out what's going on out there. I am so happy to have the well, he's almost the dean of the corps out there of television reporters.
TV.
Can you realize that?
Yeah, Brent Skarkey's still out there from Channel 4. He's been there a minute.
Yeah, he has. But Brent started out in sports.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, it could be a tie because you've been to correspondent since you were 6. Storm
That's
Jones,
right.
So that's great stuff. By the way, I have to tell you that there is this OU thing that runs through this, but we've got some really great friends from Oklahoma State University, UCOs, great journalists in the state,
Oh yeah.
from other universities out there. So we just always like to fly that red flag whenever we get a chance to. It's great to see you. We obviously, it's a special edition to talk about that announcement that came this afternoon about the concurrent special session as we were staring down the barrel of the end of this session.
Right.
There's more intrigue. And this is what I learned when I was a kid watching Wide World of Sports. That's the only place you could watch Ali fight. It would be like, we'll get to the Ali fight, but first, Tiddlywinks that were played this week. So I had to wait till the end of the, Wide World of Sports to listen to how it goes.
A few commercials. Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll settle some things. But before we get to that, the main story you're working on today is something that gets left out a lot. Has huge implications about the way we do things here in Oklahoma. Every lawyer in the state of Oklahoma has an opinion. Most of them thumbs down.
Right.
On Senate Joint Resolution, is that right? 43.
Yeah.
That's still out there, still being considered, has tons of theater and intrigue. And take it away. This is a really great story to listen to.
Yeah. So this was the story I was working on until about 2:30 today.
I understand.
But this morning, it was actually brought up in the Joint Committee on Banking, Financial Services, and Pensions, which the relevance of that, I have no clue. That was also brought up in the committee, how it didn't really fit in that committee. But essentially, right now, since 1967, voters passed into the state constitution that there's a judicial nominating commission, a hodgepodge of 15 folks, some elected by the Bar Association, appointed by the governor. Each congressional district gets a seat. It's a hodgepodge of folks that isn't controlled by a single political party. That basically someone can apply to be on one of the state's major courts. So district judges are elected, but you have the state Supreme Court, Court of Criminal and Civil Appeals that are appointed. So this entity, you could apply to a vacancy. They would vet, go through, question, interview these folks, and spit out 3 names to the governor that he or she could pick from. Well, this bill by Representative LePack from Claremore would let the governor pick whoever he or she wanted, and then that person would be subject to a 16-member joint committee vote by lawmakers. Interesting. Representative LePack was up front this morning in the committee meeting. His wife serves on the Judicial Nominating Commission, and he told lawmakers that his daughter was actually denied a nomination, or she applied, went through the vetting process, and didn't get it. He says it's secretive. He says he knows a lot of good people that go in there and subject themselves to this line of questioning, and they come out and they feel used and abused and don't want to be any part of this process. Democrats say, well, the Republicans haven't liked some of the recent decisions. Maybe the courts aren't as on their side as they would like. LePack mentioned at one point that, well, people think that the governor is appointing his pick to the state Supreme Court, but he's not. He's getting to pick 3 people. Maybe he would like the other 6 or 9 or 12 who applied that he had no clue who applied. But Democrats say this basically just overturned it all with super majorities in the House and Senate and a Republican governor. Democrats say this is, the judiciary is the only thing standing between some of these unconstitutional laws from taking effect. But yeah, interesting. LePack says bring it out in the public. He says these behind closed door meetings are awful, brutal things. And so he wants to be able to, have it out in front of everyone. But others say the nominating commission was instituted to get rid of some bribing, to curtail some bribes taking place with judges in the late 60s here in Oklahoma. LePack said you can still get bribes even in the current system. So
just have to have 3 times the bribes. That's how you would do that. And it is, you know what? It was it Truman said, the only thing we don't know is the history we haven't read yet. I'm trying to think about who it was that said those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So this was for those of you who are like really old like me, that was a wee child. It's 8, 9 years old. There was a major, major Supreme Court scandal in Oklahoma. And I think there are people walking around upright taking on nourishment know all about this.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those situations where present company obviously excluded. Savage has done a couple of stories. He's always just done a couple of stories.
Sure.
You know, Jones and Savage, my two favorites out there, and Augusta. But there has just not been enough media attention on this on both sides. I mean, SJR 43 has monumental impact on our state, and it's just sailing through like nobody sees it. People are chasing the scandals. I get it. Okay. Sure. And there's not 5,000 journalists. This is not Washington or even Austin. Okay. There's not that many people to go around, but that this has not been covered more is not good.
No, and it hasn't. And folks have reached out to us about it. And today I saw it back up on this joint committee agenda. But that's the thing, I guess, about it sailing is that, it got the amendments got rejected. So it went to conference committee. And the Senate signed off on their part. So it's weird in conference committees. There's not an up or down vote at the committee. They open up the document for a signature to, release it from the conference committee, basically saying they've agreed on language. So the Senate had reached the threshold for signatures to get it back to the floor. But the House, last I checked, you have to get 5 out of 9 signatures. And LePac was the only one that has signed off on the bill going back to the floor. So the life on that, I don't know. We thought we were nearing the end. I guess we're still nearing the end of the regular session. So who knows if that has any light. I don't know why, these sorts of things, I guess they don't matter because they happen all the time. But how a judicial nominating bill gets assigned to Banking, Finance, and Pension Committee. But I don't know why it was assigned if there was no life for it, but who knows?
Well, it's the worst kept secret in town. And how long had you been there? Because you'd covered lots of stories when you were at OU, right? But then you get out there and it's a whole different nomenclature, right? When somebody's looking right at you and tells you a big old whopper, but they don't really believe it's a whopper. They may not even think that they're telling you a whopper, but it's not exactly reality, so to speak, right? And so when you have people that are looking at you and they're advocating X, Y, and Z, and I know there's some businesses that have been after this for 20 years, 25 years they've been wanting this. And it's because we don't like the way these rules are going. So these rulings are going. And you're not going to get anybody on the record. You'll get people on the record denying it, but there are people who want it to happen and they just won't be straight up with it. So it's Candace calls it that it's a world of cognitive dissonance and cronyism. You have to thread that needle. So some of that cognitive dissonance this is not about the rulings they've made. Yes, it is. But if you don't really believe that, then we need Dismukes in here to help us with personality disorders or something. But that's happening. By the way, you did a great segue into where we wanted to go, which is this was your SJR 43 was your main bill today, and then ding dong, 315 comes.
Yeah, wham! I get, hey, do you know this is happening? And the front page of a call for a special concurrent session, which is essentially, a petition amongst lawmakers that they have to get 2/3 of both chambers to call, themselves back in. You may know this, but I was talking to someone as I was walking out of the Capitol, someone everyone would know, and he said, I've been up here 25 years and I've never once seen lawmakers call themselves back into a special session like this. I don't know if it's anything that, the governor does it, revenue failure, that sort of thing. I guess maybe the legislature called themselves on redistricting, but this is kind of not something we've seen at the Capitol.
Okay, so they've called themselves into session, but did it look like a rank and file sort of thing, not from the leadership, but it's more along the lines of the worker bees were starting to do this petition from what I heard. I've had a chance to check any of it out. Sure. It just sort of happened, and then leadership got involved. And what's going on, Ethan?
I couldn't tell you the genesis of it, other than I think I just had assumed it happened so quickly that they had it in the caucus today. that it was like a printed copy of the front of the table, front of the room. You come up and sign it. Whether leadership was initially behind the push or not, I don't know, but they supported it in the end. We got statements from House Speaker Charles McCall and Pro Tem Greg Treat supporting, the efforts behind this. I guess we should talk about what it is. We've kind of been beating around the bush. So
go right ahead. Go right
ahead. At least the bulk of it.
And right in fact, while you're talking, while you explain it, I'm going to load this Speaker McCall video. Okay.
Okay. We got an exclusive interview with McCall after this, right? That he talked with Scott. But right now, OMES has the American Rescue Plan funds. It's two payments sent to the state totaling $1.8 billion. And right now, that is under the purview of Office of Management Enterprise Services with a joint committee of lawmakers in the pandemic relief joint committee, 24 of them. But right now they're an advisory role. And I think it's something like 17 point some odd billion dollars of requests have been submitted to the governor, to this committee, to OMES for this money. And as of this morning, House and Senate leadership say zero of it has been distributed. None of the money has been spent. And so I think there's a frustration among lawmakers that this is not happening. The money's not going out fast enough. They said something like 40 other states, are well past us on this, and folks are getting the assistance they need. So tonight, as we're speaking, I don't know what time it is. Lawmakers will come back in at 7:30 and pass two bills. One of them creates an account in the treasurer's office for most all of that pandemic relief funds to go into. The other moves the money in. And by doing that, it will basically set up a process where lawmakers will have the ability to pass and designate where they want this money to go like they would any other spending. So it'll go through the House, the Senate, be sent to the governor. Governor could veto it. They could override that veto. Before, it was more of it was a purely advisory role on the lawmaker's part, and then the governor got to check off the projects that he wanted to go to. So this really pulls that money back and requires lawmaker input on every penny of the $1.8 billion, which, by the way, Scott, is 20% of the state budget. I mean, this is a lot of free money that lawmakers now have in their laps to figure out what to do with.
Okay, let me see because this happens so fast. I mean, I was prepping for they're going to be out of here, and then they're going to go home, wait a few days, see if the governor vetoes some of this stuff, and come back on a week from Friday, 7, 8 days from now. And then this happens. What you just told me is all of these hearings that have been going on for a year or so, all of these ARPA and all these meetings, all this presentation. I know a couple of nonprofits I was involved, the lobbyists were saying, you got to get your stuff ready, got to get it in.
Sure.
This has been going on for all this time, and it was all up to the executive branch, and they haven't spent a penny yet. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, there's only two projects that they've approved. One has to do with OU Children's Hospital. And honestly, the second one escapes me, but none of that money has gone out. And lawmakers today were really frustrated. I'm not sure at the timing. I'm not sure why they couldn't have taken possession of that money earlier in the session. Maybe it has something to do with the looming budget that lawmakers just passed, nearly $10 billion budget that the governor hasn't commented on. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that doesn't look good. Number one. Number two, that right down at the end, you see this happen really quickly. Now, the governor had a statement. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But it was all ponies and rainbows from what I saw.
It was ponies and rainbows with a little, maybe something else in there. Here we go. The governor today said, I promised Oklahomans that I would run a state government in an efficient and transparent way. So I greatly appreciate the legislature's commitment to work through the summer to distribute ARPA funds with full transparency. That's the good part. That's a good part. I'm glad they're finally joining me in this work. Then he goes on to say, I expect comprehensive strategic ideas that make a generational impact rather than piecemeal projects driven by special interest and lobbyists.
Okay. And we have her a little bit later. The incoming minority leader in the House was talking about, we haven't seen any of this legislation in the last few years recently to give the executive branch more power. is that the first year was Governor Stitt's 2019, the first year. I mean, anything he wanted, that first session was as smooth as they go because anything he wanted, the legislature gave him. But then there's been a lot of these agencies where that he's gotten this power, and there are controversies in virtually all of them where the commissions went away. And sometimes that's okay. It depends on what the controversy is. But with Healthcare Authority, Department of Health, but in all fairness, that was done away with back in the Fallon administration.
Sure. And the rules were changed at the end of the Fallon administration on a lot of this, and I think the governor was the first one to maybe take advantage of the rules. There, and there's always going to be some sort of controversy, some scandals ahead of the elections. They say, that's kind of inevitable. But to your point, this is the first time this much power, I guess, has been tested in an administration, and when it comes to appointing in these commissions and stuff. And there's kind of there's an ad right now out there running that is the governor at, I think is his first State of the Union or State of the State address, saying, with me having this power to appoint, hire, and fire, the buck stops with me. And that's a pretty strong ad, in my opinion. And obviously the governor isn't omnipresent on all these boards. He doesn't have a feet in everything. But when you do have that top line power, the buck does stop somewhere on a lot of this. But no, you're right, Scott. A lot of it's kind of been piling up, I guess, over the past few months.
So insiders are panning some of the performance on some of these. The insiders, okay? And so you talk to the insiders all the time. One of the things that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days over at News 9 is we're going to be seeing some poll results.
Yeah, okay? Had some out this evening. Yep.
Okay. And that's going to be Shepard, Sooner Poll. Shepard's done a lot of work for Griffin Communications for many years, and it's the Republican side. So we're going to be seeing, I think, several statewide races. It's going to be interesting to see if they get into what's happening around the nation right now, which is how are Trump and Biden doing in a state? I can already put my hat on this one. Okay. Trump's doing great here. Biden's doing bad here. That's going to be,
yes,
but how it filters down into some of these other races. And
it does. I got a sneak peek of the poll results today. And one of the questions, obviously that favorable, unfavors Biden, Trump, but then how much a Trump endorsement matters to people. There was one option that's like, if Trump endorsed him, automatically I vote for that person. Another was like, if Trump endorses a person, I would think more about it. And then there's obviously very small number that says, well, if Trump endorses a candidate, that I would be repulsed by that, and I wouldn't choose that. But they sift down into that. They sift down into the most important issue. What do you think the most important issue to voters is right now, Scott?
I'm going to, we have a new drinking game on Sunday mornings. You know where I'm going with this? It's the John Eccles coffee drinking game. We can't get, it's not like the weather thing where people take, somebody says wall cloud and they, take a shot. Okay. So this is coffee. Because ours is Sunday morning. It's family deal. Okay. Early in the morning. And so the basic thrust is John Eccles says the I word, you take a shot. Okay. And at the end of your vote counts, you're going to be so wired up that you're not going to have to sleep for 2 days.
Sure.
Here's my guess. Okay. My guess is inflation.
Yep. Over 30% of respondents, that was their number one issue right now, was inflation.
Well, it's a concern.
Yep.
It's a big old concern. Okay. When you look at, and you and all your buddies out there that are out there day trading and watching what your stock portfolios, you're seeing what's happening there, and people holding real estate.
Oh yeah.
And you know what else enters into this?
Yeah.
And then we'll get to that. We're going to play portions of the Speaker McCall and Leader Munson, different, really, these are really quality people. It's always fun for me to get that time with Speaker and with Leader Munson. But the thing is that people are just, they're just kind of worried about these things right now. And they just don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to impact these races, kind of like Pennsylvania last night.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the race, in a lot of sports like MMA and boxing and stuff where things go the distance and people are going, well, here's what he did right, here's what he did wrong. The media was all taking apart what the results in Pennsylvania were. So everything's under a microscope right now.
Sure.
But it's a really, really fascinating time.
Hey, I want to bring one thing full circle just for a second. One point that was made today on the inflation point is that with this $1.8 billion in COVID relief money sitting in an account, that money, the argument is that money is less and less valuable every single day because of inflation. So the quick math that House Speaker Pro Tem Kyle Hilbert did today was that if lawmakers waited until February when they come back in session again to appropriate this money, it's worth $126 million less than it would be worth today with an 8-point-something% inflation. Another interesting argument on why this money needs to get out the door.
Yeah, it's kind of like that old argument they used to have about whether oil was worth more in the ground or pumping it out at the time. Listen, Hilbert's sneaky smart. Okay, he's up on you pretty quick. He's a brilliant guy, and that's a Hilbert point. That's a great Hilbert point on that. Let's take a quick look. This is Storm. If you have just a moment, this is earlier this evening. I did this probably 2 hours ago with Speaker McCall. We're not going to play the whole thing, but here's what he had to say about today's developments.
Yeah, hey, Scott, great to be with you today. The legislature is going to convene itself in a concurrent special session that will span beyond the constitutional session limitation of the last Friday in May. And what has prompted that is the fact that we've had federal government has sent ARPA funds to the state of Oklahoma, $1.8 billion. And we are going to call ourselves into special session to continue to work through those monies and those projects that have been submitted by the people of the state of Oklahoma and groups across the state of Oklahoma to get those ARPA funds awarded by the timelines that are attached to it. We'll be continue to work with the governor in that manner, but we will continue our constitutional duty of appropriating monies and vetting projects beyond the limitations of the constitutional session, which we will close by no later than May 27th of this year.
There's always going to be people that speculate about things that are happening and trying to work drama into the equation. But can you tell us just specifically, is there any drama involved in this? It's just the nuts and bolts of doing business in an extraordinary time with all those ARPA funds.
Yeah, it's the ARPA funds are extraordinary, and that is the trigger. The main reason that we're going to have to go into concurrent special session. We were going to continue to work very closely with the governor on these matters, and there's really no theater here. We just have run out of the constitutional time of the regular session to take up to continue to work on this is going to take more time. There are multiple billions of dollars of projects submitted to the state for review for this $1.8 billion pot of money that's come to the state. And in order for us to look at all of those and consider all of those, work with the governor on the approach and how that money would best benefit the state, we're going to need more time than just another week and a half.
All right. So people are going to say, hey, you've got to have that budget done. You've got to have it done by the end of the last week of May. From a regular session standpoint, are the constitutionally provided requirements, are they going to be handled?
Yes, we are on track and scheduled to finish up policy and budget this week by Friday. And the governor will have all those bills. We will, and then at that point in time, he has 5 days to consider all that legislation and give an indication to the legislature where he agrees and where he may not agree. And we will wait and to see what his actions are the final week of session before we adjourn on time. But we will have handled all the people's business, routine and regular business through the constitutional session, and we'll have all that work handled and completed by the deadline that the people have given us in the Constitution.
When we go down the list of things that you were wanting to do when we began discussing, let me we'll go ahead and post the entire interview that we got into kind of his session goals, broadband, medical marijuana, that sort of thing. I remember what I went blank while ago, senior moment. There's this thing out there called Project Ocean.
Right.
And we've seen, and I did ask him about it, but we didn't really have time to get into it very deep. Kansas keeps upping the ante, is my understanding of bringing this in. At the shareholders quarterly call last week, Panasonic was kept secret in town. It's Panasonic.
Player one.
Which one is that?
Player one is what
Player
it's
one
referred to as.
We should be doing this on Twitch.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, like a video game. So Kansas keeps up in the ante, and we saw what happened with Canoe. And the Canoe story is a business story that was handled by a lot of political writers. And so I was reading both, different viewpoints about how this went. But Canoe, I think, was in the process of, I don't think they're going anywhere. They're just trying to raise money. They're trying to tell people we got to have more money to do this. They're not going out of business. So chill on that one. A lot of people are going, Oklahoma's there. It's just, okay. Read the financial papers. Stay away from the political writers on that one. What I do know is that Panasonic in their quarterly earnings call the other day said, well, we're having problems because we can't get enough batteries. Holy Moses. The irony in that particular statement, right?
Yeah. So
this thing has become, it becomes even more enormous than would have been 2 months ago in the current climate, world climate, in terms of EVs and batteries. It's just bigger. Do you think that anything was happening on this concurrent session has anything to do with Project Ocean? I know Representative Martinez has given, I think last week on one of the streams, gave a detailed explanation of how they were taking the 2 tracks, put the money over here. But you think this has anything to do with the Panasonic situation with this call for a concurrent session?
Well, we know in the call, the LEAD Act is explicitly mentioned in what to do with that money. I'm just looking at it again here, but it says the measure has been signed into law, providing a special economic development incentive with the required an appropriation to fully implement. And and then it also mentions the state of Oklahoma may also need to address issues of critical importance to statewide economic development. So certainly, they've got to figure out what to do with the money if it doesn't work out. Another thing, I think, someone also mentioned to me that this call today was well worded to be an expansive call if they wanted to be. So obviously we have American Rescue Plan funds, $1.8 billion. We have Project Ocean, $800 million on that, if they need to up it, if they need to change it, what to do with the account if Panasonic doesn't come. But also even reaching back to some CARES funding. And there's been stories on how gear funding was spent $8 million worth on education. So, I think the scope of the special session could be wider, or if it needs to be on some of these topics like Project Ocean. I think folks certainly thought there would be an announcement by now from Panasonic. I think whenever the governor came out in the Blue Room and said, hey, we're going to do this, we're on the cusp of this, that was maybe a Thursday. And I think they were expecting something Monday or Tuesday. I'm not saying the governor was expecting that, but that was kind of the thought that, hey, this would be happening pretty quick.
Yeah, their board was supposed to be doing something.
Yeah.
Have you had any insight as to what's taking them so long?
No, to be honest with you, I have not.
Looking at some of our comments, Michael saying, Michael, thanks very much, Michael Leake. Inflation is a major concern. So back to our poll.
Yeah.
And I'm looking all through some of these comments. That's a problem. Some anti-ohms statements from Julie.
I do know on the for the procedural folks on how they're going to get this stuff through. We will see, like I said, 2 bills tonight pulling really that money back under the legislature's purview. But then they're going to run some shell bills more or less, because the Constitution says a special session has to be in session for at least 5 days. But they're going to set it up by running these shell bills. They'll pass bills out of the House, the Senate. I stand corrected. They'll pass bills out of the House, The Senate will offer an amendment. The House will reject an amendment on the shell bill, no substance here, which will make it go to a conference committee, and then they'll be able to get it out of conference committee and on a vote in both chambers on one day. So their goal is to be able to bring folks back and just have one day of work at a time. Not to say they won't come back for several one-day sessions. They also made a commitment, and they say they're going to adopt a rule that, the bills will be online live with their actual language for some duration of time before they're calling lawmakers back to vote them. But you're going to see some, I guess, just maneuvering in order to operate within the rules the rest of this week and next week. So the concurrent special session will run tomorrow, Friday, and then Thursday and Friday of next week to get 5 days. So this is just eating up the clock so that when they actually have something they're ready to do, they can do it quick.
All right, you mentioned the shell bills. And by the way, let me stand corrected. This is what happens, Julie, whenever you become really old and you can't see through your cataracts. Julie Logan is one of our regulars on Health Watch. It appears the governor's office is unaware of regulations associated with appropriations. OHMs need to be involved. So she'd say, I'm pro OHMs on this. My apologies if I weren't like a bat. I could see that. But anyway. All right. So back to where you're going. It's fascinating. So they're going to pull this money back, and this is going to be the House and the Senate. Sounds like they're going to do it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they do this. They pull this money back. And then would they conceivably have to, how would the House and Senate distribute that money? Or is that going to be legislation that they've got to pass? And then are we going to give X amount to Joe Bob Inc. and then send it to the governor?
So they already have this joint committee that has been meeting. And I think the number, I'm not certain, but it's like $17 billion worth of requests. So they already have a lot of requests, a huge, criticism that has been secret. Like, we don't know who's requesting for what. So each dollar, each penny of this $1.8 billion will be debated like a normal bill. I say like a normal bill. Hopefully there'll be more debate and conversation than is in the appropriations bill, the general appropriations bill. I don't know if that's necessarily a golden beacon of hope on transparency. But it will have a vote in both chambers. The governor will have an opportunity to veto it. Theoretically, the governor could veto these bills, giving the money back to the legislature, since they have. I was told there are a few people that didn't sign the call for a special session today. So since there's an overwhelming consensus that they would, have the special session, they would probably have the votes to override the veto to get the money that they want.
Right.
But I don't know if the governor wants to try to, do that. But
nobody wants to get into that sort of a fight. I'm trying to load up this.
No, you're good.
While this is loading, I have one more question for you about a story that is an incredible story that's just not getting any traction at all. We've seen back in the fall, you may have even covered some of those hearings about this money that's been held up in these property tax protests around the state. The last number I heard was $80 million. And it's a fight between, and I saw this, I don't know if anybody saw this before, but we had a stream a couple of weeks ago with the renewable energy industry and the oil and gas guys together on some of this legislation. And it has to do with counties hiring one consultant, apparently sole source contracts for 44, 46 counties, and they can't get together on the valuations. And so all this money is held up. It's not going to education. There's a lot of recriminations. They've had hearings. You've had several legislators working these bills, and nothing's getting done. There was legislation to up the level of education for assessors because they all are hiring this guy, one guy, to do this valuation, to assess the property of pipelines, oil rigs, agricultural property, that sort of thing. In fact, Aggies, the oilies, the renewables, and business have all said we need to get this stuff passed. So legislation to up education requirements gone away. They had a bill out there to take this guy out of the when it goes to court, those sorts of hearings. It got beat today by 3 votes. There's been a year's worth of work on this, and people have been getting all exercised about these sole source contracts. This one is another one of those that just doesn't seem, anybody seems to be paying attention to what's going on. Have you been watching that one at all?
Honestly, I mean, you're right, Scott, on that, in that it has escaped, some of the mainstream coverage on it. But the conversations I've heard about it is fascinating, where, someone gets to set the evaluation. Maybe there's an incentive not to give a good evaluation, because if you're going to be the guy hauled into court and paid to defend the evaluation, I mean, hello. That's like, getting a bad insurance assessment and then you sue the insurer and he's the expert witness too, getting paid on 2/3 the side of this thing. I don't know. I honestly have not probably given it, read into it as much as I should.
How
but
could
$80
you?
million, I mean,
Yeah.
not nothing.
It's one guy that likened it to like a controversial call. Football game referee goes over to the replay booth, throws the flag over throws the cape over their heads, watching, and pulls out the phone to call upstairs, and the answer's the phone in his left pocket, right?
Sure.
And it's just been amazing. I know that some of the large business groups and agriculture groups have been for this, but it's like nobody will do the story, or very few people will do the story. And there's $80 million being held up out there. It's just, I just got to see sometimes, and it's bureaucrats versus some of the businesses' interest. And so I had a lobbyist reach out to me that said, hey, one of the assessors, and this is all assessors versus all this other bunch, the assessors seem to be winning. By doing nothing, they're winning right now. And so we'd like to get somebody on. I said, I'd be happy to have them at any time. So that invitation's been given to kind of the lead assessors. We'll have you on to talk about this. But right now, I'm just staying low, keeping quiet. They seem to be taking the day. It went down. They may have another vote on it tomorrow. It's very curious. Let's put it that way. All right. So this is what I was trying to promise. And I want to thank my friends at Oklahoma State University who pulled this together for me this evening. All right. And so to get the other side about what the speaker had to say about this concurrent session, I reached out to the soon to be minority leader in the House, Representative Cindy Munson. We had a short visit just a few minutes ago while she was on lunch break. And here this is, or dinner break rather. Pleased to be joined on her dinner break, by the way, by the leader-elect, the House Democrat caucus, the soon-to-be minority leader, Representative Cindy Munson. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long day, but I'm good.
You gotten dinner yet?
I ate some snacks and had water.
Okay. Hydration's important.
That's right. The least I can do for myself.
It is. Well, take care of yourself. All right.
Yeah.
Because and it doesn't sound like the work is near done.
No.
So when did you find out about what was going to be happening with this concurrent special session?
Yeah, this information got shared earlier this afternoon. Had a meeting and discussed what a special session might look like, and specifically just having conversations about where we are in the ARPA process. I am a member of the Joint Committee for Pandemic Relief Funding. And so, for months, we've been working pretty diligently on these proposals that have been submitted by Oklahomans across our state. And we haven't heard anything from the governor in terms of what has been approved or disapproved and whether or not monies have been distributed. Of course, I now know officially that $0 have been spent. And we've got to get these monies out to our communities and address the needs that have been submitted to us in the last few months. So I'm looking forward to the special sessions. This is my third or fourth year we've had special sessions. So they're always interesting.
Do you think there's something else besides what the press releases are saying? People are making nice here, no theater. The speaker said there's no theater here. We're trying to get some work done, but there's this undercurrent that the legislature is really at odds with the governor over how this is being done. Your thoughts? Yeah.
I mean, I'll say, in 2019, the Republicans wanted to give all this power to the governor. And I think especially this year and in recent months with news that has come out, we're realizing, or I should say we are realizing, we try to inform our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that putting that much power, concentrating it in the executive branch, and specifically for the governor, that we would run into complications. And I believe that's what we're experiencing with the Swadley's deal and Secretary Brian Walters and the federal money there, that the news of that is coming out about monies being misspent. And now, we have $1.8 billion coming to the state of Oklahoma that is meant to be spent on projects to help our communities with education, healthcare, broadband, our economy. This money is supposed to go and help our constituents. And he has been unwilling or unable to do his job when it comes to that. And so putting that power back in the legislature and having more members of the legislature have a say, I do believe is the right move. And I would agree with the governor in that this isn't about theater for the Democrats either. This is about, reclaiming the work that we should have been doing and we should be doing. And just sort of, I don't want to say it's I told you so either, but it kind of is that we knew that this would eventually happen, and here we are today.
So that was 2019, what you were talking about. Have you seen any bills in this session, maybe in the last 3 years, that did more of putting power into the executive, or was that pretty much over at that one session?
See, with COVID, my brain gets...
Yeah, that was a whole different.
That was definitely the main session, but and also dismantling commissions and boards, and then of course, I guess more so we've just seen how the bills have been implemented and how he's appointed folks who align 100% with him. And it's less about what the people want and what's best for those agencies and the services that are provided, and more, are you in alignment with the governor? So I thought the question was going to be, has there been any legislation to take some of that power back? And of course, the answer is no.
All right. So that's going to happen, that concurrent session. Let's talk a little bit about the close of the current one. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of statements. It may have been one of yours. I think saw Senator Hicks, I think Representative Walkie, who I'm going to miss. Oh yeah. Man, we're going to miss that guy. Not very happy with what the inflation relief, tax issues. As this session grinds to a halt, the regular session, what are the main things that Democrats and your colleagues in the Senate Democrats are at odds with the governor and, I should say odds with the House and Senate leadership on?
Yeah, our main issue with the budget, one, it is the one and only constitutional duty we have. We must pass a balanced budget before we sign and die, which is next Friday. And this year in particular, the Republicans have celebrated the surplus funds that we have $1 billion more in our budget to appropriate. And while there are some areas in state government that we are funding that I am happy about, specifically the DDS waiting list. That specific program has been something, area of DHS that I've been very passionate about. I'm happy that it's being funded. But when you look at things like education, especially, and everything that we have all gone through with COVID, especially our teachers and our students, those needs and expenses have only risen. And when you look at inflation, education's only getting, I think it's 0.5% more than they have received, that they received last fiscal year. And so those are the things that we are really concerned about. And then of course, today we voted on a inflation stimulus relief fund. I'm trying to remember what they called it. I'm calling it Santa Bucks because these monies will go out December 1st of 2022. Single filer will get $75. Those in a household of two will get $150. To me, yes, any money that we can get back to Oklahomans is certainly important, but to me, it's offensive to think that $75 is going to provide any type of relief for anybody. When quite frankly, we could be doing things like ending the sales tax on groceries, at the state sales tax on groceries, or finding other ways to help working Oklahomans to get through this time as we're coming out of, or the way we're living with COVID, and then of course with inflation. So those things have been, we wish that we were heard a little bit more on some of those issues.
Okay. You know what? If they had more numbers over in the Democrat side, first off, she's a rock star. And she's kind of a throwback for Democrats in terms of a person that can get things done, reaches across the aisle. It would be interesting to see Cindy Munson the leader 15 years ago. It's interesting.
A firebrand on the floor too. I mean, she gets fired up on the floor, and but no, a historic small caucus in the House. It's never been smaller.
And make it more small. Is that right? Smaller still? Something like that. Well, I think first off, thanks for taking your dinner time to chat with us. These don't happen very often, but this is kind of a monumental day, to use the term. This is it's going to be interesting to see what the political writers say in the morning about what happened today. And I think everybody's saying the right words, but this was an uprising.
Yeah, it was big. But according to I jotted it down earlier. According to the speaker, no theater here.
His exact words.
That was interesting to me. One way or another, I mean, it is an election season. It is an election year. And now lawmakers have a fifth of the state budget to give away. So it'll be a wild one, I guess, between now. And they can keep this special session open until the new legislature comes in February. Or maybe they're sworn in January. Anyway, they can hold it open until the beginning of next year when new lawmakers come in. So,
and they don't want to do that. I mean, they want to be home campaigning. I mean, that's the undercurrent here, is that these people wanted to go home 2 weeks ago. They would have liked to. There's some hot races out there in what? It's the 18th. What's the 26th, 27th of June? 6 weeks away,
I think. Yeah, but they get to go home and be Santa Claus now. They're not. This is no, bash on the folks where this money will go, but they'll be able to go to their hospital in rural Oklahoma and say, "I just scored us an expansion of the emergency room," or I just helped build this well. Or there's a lot of money on the table that will be going to untraditional sources. That's not a bad thing. I mean, they got to spend this money, obviously. But it'll be interesting to see to what extent that plays, and what extent, if you approve this project in my district, maybe do something. There's got to be a lot of money flowing to a lot of different places.
And also, even if he gets reelected, I mean, for at least 2 years, anytime the governor is in with Greg Treat and Charles McCall, he's still the junior guy in terms of seniority, and they're going to be back. I'm right about the pro tem, right?
Yes.
So, and assuming that Leader Eccles gets reelected, which he should, and the speaker didn't draw an opponent, I'm not sure about the rest of his leadership team, but holy moly, I mean, they're going to be around. So they have to make nice on days like this. It's not coming to an end. There's 2+ more years on this. If the governor wins re-election,
the budget, in my opinion, is still a big question mark. I have no inclination where the governor is out of the budget. He has vetoed a budget entirely. Of course, he can line item veto, or he can just reject the whole thing. And he's done that before. And the big press release earlier or last week, holy crap, that was Monday. The press release on Monday, cheering on the budget, didn't mention the governor. It had words of applause from the speaker, the pro tem, the chairs of the A and B committees on either side. Last year, I was there. There's a press conference where the governor and the budget chairs stood up and presented this wonderful budget, not hide nor hair. And it's hard to wonder if this announcement today if it's not all connected somehow. But that's why they get this budget done early, so then the governor has the time to respond and they can override. This next week and a half is going to be pretty lively, I think.
Yeah, that's why you need to make sure you're following Storm Jones on all the platforms. And I hope you follow me on Twitter and follow our Mitchell Talks page, because there's some checkers being played right now. I'm not sure it's to the chess level yet, but there's some checkers going on here, and we'll be looking forward to see how that works. Well, the announcement of Storm's, getting out of there for the summer premature. So at least, well, as you just said, I mean, this could be going on to December still
Yep.
right now. So
Mhm.
again, remember whenever we were like, if somebody says unprecedented one more time, right?
I
You
hate
know
it.
how we stopped that, right? There's not been so much unprecedented lately, but you know, it was all tied to COVID. But man, what a time! What a time to be alive! What a time to have Storm Jones out at the Capitol. Thank you, Storm, for your time,
Yeah, happy to do it.
and thanks for all the folks that are watching. We'll see you Saturday morning. I'm not sure who's going to be hot seat guest. I had an idea. I think it's all changed now, and on your vote counts. And got a lot of news. Just keep with us. We'll see you soon. Have a great evening, everyone.
See ya.